submit as visible.
Oh, okay. So, along with the documentation, what we do, writing the user stories or writing the functional requirements or whatever it is, and defining the acceptance criteria for all your requirements. Sometimes the business will ask you, or sometimes your process will demand you to do some kind of support documentation using the diagrams. Let's say if you are working on a banking application, and if you are using if you are doing the requirements for a ATM application, then you should be able to design or do the diagrams called activity diagrams, which will represent the flow of activities and how the activities are coordinated with the help of some diagrams in pictorial form to support your actual user stories and documentation. So basically there are like two types of activity diagrams which are mainly used. One is just like a normal activity diagram, and one is called swim lane, where in swim lane means like a swimming pool, you will have separate lanes where different aspects of the system are depicted. I'll show you through an example so that you can understand. These will be simple examples, but if you go into the real time, sometimes complex applications might be like you will be encountering some complex applications, and you might be or might not be required to do these diagrams. But yeah, if you have a knowledge, if you have knowledge of this or have an overview or idea of this, it would help you. Maybe in case if you have to do that in your project, you can just go ahead, research, and see some YouTube tutorials with detailed like usage of Visio and all these softwares. So but I'll give you an overview of what it looks like. So an activity diagram describes how activities are coordinated. It's is particularly useful when you know that an operation has to achieve a number of different things. So sometimes like you will have bidirectional flows, right? So if you are entering the pin number on ATM machine, if it is correct, you will have one flow, and if you enter it wrong, you will have another flow. So these activity diagrams help you to design the flow of the system. What happens after you enter the correct pin, and what happens if you don't enter the correct pin in pictorial form, so that the business will understand it in a more clear way. So it records the dependencies also between each activities, and which things can happen in parallel and which must be finished before something else can start, and represents mainly the workflow of any process. So let's go through them, and I'll show you with examples. So this is just a notation which can be used. So these square boxes with round edges, they define the activities in the system. So after completing one activity, you are moving to the another activity. Just this arrow denotes that. And this is a decision diamond, the one in the right side. So when you are having a decision in the flow, you use this diamond box where you will mention if the pin entered is, so if the diamond box says pin entered, and you will have two flows from the diamond box. If it is correct, one flow, and if it is not correct, another flow. So this in any flow of a process, the decision diamond will help you to design the flow when there is a decision to be made, or if there is any yes no logic question in the flow. So notation 3, these are join bars and these are fork bars. So when you are splitting two processes into one, or two activities into one, then you will use the join one. And when you are joining two activities into one activity, then you will have this sync bar. One second, is anyone joining? And if you are splitting one activity into multiple activities, then you will be using the splitting bar in the diagram. So notation 3, so you will always be using a completely filled in circle to use it as a start marker, and at the end of process you will use this symbol, the stop marker, to denote that the process flow is complete. So Simlane, when I go into the Simlane diagram, I will show you how it looks like and how do you draw a Simlane diagram. So yeah, this is just a high level diagram, activity diagram of how a library system or borrowing a book in library works. If you see, there is a solid dot which denotes that the process is starting here, and then you have a decision box where the question is asked if it is a borrower or returner. Is the member a borrower or returner? If it is a borrower, then the process starts, so he will try to find book on the shelf, and if it is a returner, he'll just go to the queue. So this is a manual process which we are talking about, not the automated one. So they are dealing directly with the librarian. To find a book, to borrow a book, he first finds the book and then joins the queue to meet the librarian to borrow that. If it is a returner, then he will directly go to the queue and wait for the librarian. So both processes combine here to go to the librarian. So after, when the process starts at the librarian, there is another decision box. If you see, this decision diamond states that if the person is borrowing or returning. If returning, then the right side process record the return. The librarian records the return, puts the book back on shelf, and then if you see here, this is a join operation, and the above it is a split operation. After taking the return, the process is split into two activities. One is record the return and put the book back on shelf, and after that it is a join operation. His next activity is to prepare for the next member, and if it is the borrowing customer, then he'll just record the borrowing details and go for the next customer, and after this the process ends. If you see this dot, this is a simple high level diagram of how you need to draw these activity diagrams. So you will have like in my current project, they gave me a manual, underwriting manual for Florida sinkhole coverages and stuff. So uh, some zip codes will have a different flow, and some zip codes will have a different flow, and some counties will have a different flow. So in the beginning I write, if the zip code is in this county, then follow this flow, and if zip code is not in this county, then follow this flow. If the zip code is in this county, then decline the coverage. If zip code is in this coverage, then do add some deductible or trigger some underwriting issue or something. The other flow will happen. So in real time also you will use the same decision boxes, splits, forks and everything, but it depends on the situation, on what the flow you are designing, and you will make use of the existing symbols. So these are all no one can explain you or teach you in like 15 minutes or 1 hour. You just take your time. There are like tons of tutorials available on YouTube, how to write active, how to do activity diagrams, how to draw sequence diagrams, all this stuff. So whenever you have time, if you want to learn, just go and see them. How do you use these shapes? So this will be just drag and drops. If you use MS Visio software, I didn't use MS Visio in my project. I just used MS Paint to design it. But because I am working on the business side now, so I don't have to do the actual exact documentation. So they wanted a supporting flow diagram. Due to the confidentiality factor, I cannot show you the original one. But so you can use Paint also, and depending on the complexity or clarity of the diagram you need in your documentation, you can use the tools as required, and you can go ahead with your diagrams. So I have like few examples of these diagrams. If we go through more of them, you will understand more. So activity diagrams are to model the dynamic aspects of a system, means how the activities move from one stage to the other. It is essentially a flow chart. Like flow chart means which will show the flow of events or activities from one situation to other or one state to other, and what happens at every stage. So purpose is to model business workflows. Like I said earlier, so business will understand more clearly when you picturize the process or picturize the flow of activities or events in the system. Okay. So activity diagrams commonly contain states and action states, transitions and objects. Transitions, like I said, like I told you, from one activity to other activity, or splitting and the joining of the activities, and objects. Objects means whatever the activity that is happening. Okay. So action states are atomic and cannot be decomposed. So this, yeah, I don't think we need to go more into this. I'll show you with the examples. So yeah, this is a simple example. If you are taking a banking application, display the deposit savings window and deposit into the account and process ends. That's it. So display the deposit savings window, add the amount into it and deposit the amount. That's it. So this is a straight flow. So there is no decision diamond, or there is no decision making involved in this flow. So a simple flow might look like this. And branching means branching will take alternate paths based on some boolean expression. So it is based on some condition. It uses the decision diamond to show the different paths when you have some kind of boolean expression or decision making taking place in the process flow. So this is one sample example. So if you want to release the work order, then go to your decision box. Materials are ready, then assign the task to release the work order. Materials are not ready, reschedule the work order. So this is a simple decision box example. Okay. For the same ATM card, so it's actually people always like, not only me, most of the trainers use this ATM example for everything. It looks little odd that everyone uses this, but you have like simple options, and everyone is acquainted with the ATM process, right? That's why most of the trainers use this ATM example. So this is also a simple ATM diagram for activity diagram for ATM process. If you see this, start the process, insert the card, and you are entering the password. After entering the password, there is a decision diamond where it checks if the password is correct or not. So if the password is correct, then it moves on to the next activity or event in the flow. And if the password is not correct, it goes back to the enter password activity again, if you see the arrow mark. So this decision box has two options. One is going forward to select the transaction type, and if it is wrong, the system will prompt you back to the enter password screen again. Okay. And after selecting the transaction, perform the transaction. After performing the transaction, you have one more decision box. If you want to do more transactions, then select it, the system will direct you back to the select type of transaction. And if you are not going to do any transactions and select to opt out, then it will eject your card and the process ends there. So this is a repetitive loop. If you are selecting it for like 3 times, you don't need to write it in three, you don't need to draw it 3 times in this flow. Only one arrow which points to the select transaction type will work n number of times if you are doing it in a loop, right? So this is the way how you write, how you draw an activity diagram for a simple ATM example. Okay, just stop me or ask me if you have any questions. Okay. So forking and joining, as I told you, use a synchronization bar to specify forking and joining of parallel flows. So when you want to combine two activities, it's joining, and when you want to split activities into multiple, that is forking. So if you see this, this is an example of fork. So preparation of speech. So it is forked into two activities. One is gesture and one is decompress. So decompress again splits into two activities. When you are decompressing, you have to sync your mouth and stream the audio along with that. And after that, you will get the output, and the gesture comes with the output, and then you clean up the audio. Okay. So same thing. This is also one more kind of source. This is also like you are splitting it here, so and joining it here. If you see, this is like a simple example of a mortgage structure, but this is a high level diagram actually. A mortgage application or mortgage request may not look like this, but this is a high level diagram to show you a simple example. So when you are getting the documents, index the documents, make an electronic file, and then complete the request. After completing the request, check data for life insurance, or drop the contract mortgage deed. So once you calculate data for construction mortgage, pay provision to insurance agent, and then drop the insurance policy. So this is just how you fork and join the activities in activity diagram. So same thing again. So it's another example how you will be forking and joining. Okay. I'll show you a different example where you can understand it more clearly. Yeah, so these are all straightforward activity diagrams, and I'll show you a swim lane activity diagram as well with the help of an example. So swim lane actually specifies locus of activities. It divides the activities based on the actors or parts of the system. Is someone waiting? Oh, no. So So like a swimming pool, it will have lanes, and each group is called a swim lane. So each group representing the business organization responsible for those activities. So it will show you the activities pertaining to different business units that take part in that process flow. Each swim lane has a name unique within its diagram. Each swim lane may represent some real world entity. So these are all some technical jargons which we will not need. So yeah, this is an example of swim lane activity diagram. Let's say a customer is placing an order. So we will have three departments taking part in this order processing. The customer is the first one, and we'll have the sales team who will take the orders. And when the order should be processed, they should be interacting with the stock room or the warehouse to check if the ordered item is available or not. Okay, so customer requests the service, then the order is placed. It will be shown in the middle of this diagram, and the taking order will takes place in the sales department. So this activity is recorded in the sales swim lane, and after that it sends the information to the warehouse or the stock room where the order checks in for the availability of the item. This is a positive flow where you have the item in stock and you are filling the order, and when you fill the order is sent back again to the sales team. So sales team will deliver the order, and the customer, once it is delivered, payment part comes again from the customer, and the payment will be received by the sales team again. Okay, and on the customer side, once the order is delivered, it will be collected by the customer. So order, this is the entity which is common for all this. The order number is the one which is common for everything. So customer has the order number when he places it. Sales department uses that order number to place the to fill the order from stock room, and again when the order is delivered, the order number is used by customer to collect it or track the order. Okay, so this is a sample swim lane diagram. So in real time also, you will have customer here. If you take the banking example, you can have the bank in the middle lane, And if it is you are working on some documents project or something related to bank, the documents or the document generation department will be in the third lane, and you will be mapping all those activities using this diagram. So when after Agile Scrum methodologies came into existence, so like a lot of people stopped using these diagrams, but still those who are on hybrid model, like very still using both waterfall and Agile, some people are still relying on these documents and diagrams, but most of the time, 50% of the time, you may not encounter, but it's always better to have an idea of what an activity diagram is or what a flow chart is and what is everything. So the supporting document you might need to support your user stories. So this is another activity example for the swim lane diagram. So office clerk, insurance agent, and loan officer.